There are lots of societal ills that we attribute to different things in that community, but childhood sexual assault is the root of many of those issues. Substance abuse, incarceration, mental health issues. And if we could just talk about it and believe each other and support each other, that would solve a lot of problems.
There are nearly 60 million Americans who've been sexually abused as children. That's 1 in 4 women, 1 in 6 men, or 1 in 5 people of all gender identities. Most have never told a soul and have never gotten help to heal.
I care for individuals living with chronic pain, HIV, and substance use disorders. These conditions are often the late effects of childhood trauma, especially childhood sexual abuse.
This really is a public health emergency. This is not just a gynecology or a woman's health issue. It truly is a human issue.
At WINGS, we are proud to put the issue of childhood sexual abuse and the ways that it impacts adult survivors front and center. We provide a doorway, a gateway to specialized services designed to heal that childhood trauma within the life of an adult. When survivors are connected with the right resources to speak, to heal, and to thrive, this is what it looks and feels like.
I was sexually abused by my grandfather from the age of 10 to the age of 17.
I was sexually abused by a trusted family friend from the time I was 11 until 14 years old.
My sexual abuse began when I was 5 years old by my oldest brother. It ended when I was around 12 years old when he moved out of the house.
I was sexually abused by my grandfather, who I was expected and required to love and to obey, beginning at an age when I was too young to understand what was happening.
Between the ages of 6 and 11, I was sexually abused by multiple females in my neighborhood.
I was actually 40 years old and sharing a visiting room table with my wife in one of Colorado's prisons. And I was sharing some narrative about my childhood. And Imani said to me, "Son, that's child abuse, that's child molestation." And it was a moment for me where I came to an understanding about my past that I had not even considered. It was just like what was.
Entering into adulthood, I was very ill-equipped to manage my life. Had a drug addiction, experienced homelessness, pretty much hopped from job to job. I didn't have a lot of stability, but it was really after I had a few failed relationships that I decided to enter into therapy.
I started to have trouble breathing, and I literally couldn't breathe. My vocal cords were spasming and constricting my windpipe. My doctor thought it was asthma. I went in and saw my primary care physician repeatedly. I was at the doctor 22 times before I saw a pulmonologist who recognized that it wasn't asthma. And the last thing he said to me before I left that day was, "We don't diagnose this often. It's fairly rare, but when we do, it's usually related to childhood sexual abuse."
Yeah, I realized I needed help when my marriage began to fall apart or was falling apart. I was struggling with pornography issues, having trouble just relating because of things that were being triggered from my past, and began to seek out individual therapy for help to figure out what was going on after my wife had left.
I heard Marilyn speak at an event about 10 years ago. It was overwhelming to me to hear someone speak so calmly and rationally about what was the most horrific thing that has happened in my life. It was unimaginable before that night that somebody could have recovered from child sexual abuse.
The first time I ever saw Marilyn speak, she asked survivors to stand. And at first I wasn't going to stand. But as I looked around, I saw everyone around me standing, and I thought, "Man, I can do this, and I'm not alone."
When I read Marilyn's book, it was the first realization that what I was going through wasn't isolated. It wasn't just me. I realized that there were countless others that were experiencing the exact same type of difficulties I was experiencing. And I remember getting to the end of Marilyn's book and Marilyn's offer to reach out and respond to any survivor that wanted to talk. She was so relatable, and it was so comforting to finally have someone first apologize for what had happened to me, and then second, to say what you're going through is a direct result of the abuse that you experienced as a child.
When I realized I wanted to connect with other survivors, Marilyn referred me to WINGS, and that helped change my life.
My second therapist, the first thing that he said to me was that he wanted me to call WINGS and join a support group.
I first heard about WINGS through my therapist. It was shortly after I had disclosed my abuse in therapy that she recommended that I join a WINGS group. So I reached out to WINGS and began my group.
My first group meeting was utterly terrifying. It was all I could do to get myself to the building in time for the meeting, but I couldn't get myself out of my car. Even when I went inside, it was terrifying and overwhelming. I started to realize that all of the other people in the room had experienced the same thing that I had, and I didn't feel so alone anymore.
WINGS group for me was my safe place. It was the place where I could go and I could express feelings and, desires, fears, challenges, just a myriad of emotions that I'd never been able to share with anyone.
At the time that I was in that WINGS group, my father had passed away, and I had been back around all my family, and I really found a lot of support in that group at that time because I also was trying to prosecute my brother, and I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't been in that group and going through all those things in my life at that time.
By far, the most powerful thing about a WINGS group is me listening to that other person share his story, and in hearing that, seeing myself. When I would hear him speak and share his experiences, I had such compassion for each one of them. It made me have compassion for myself for the first time ever. That gave me hope.
The WINGS Loved Ones group pretty much saved my marriage. I mean, there was no other resources out there for my wife to help her through my healing journey and to give her the support she needed and the resources she needed to also get through it with me.
While it can never erase what happened to me, and I'll never forget what happened to me, I now have the tools and the resources, the strength and the desire to live a happy life and the ability to live a happy life and do what I want to do and not feel burdened and not feel like I'm carrying around this deep, dark secret that's going to destroy me.
We reach hundreds of survivors each year across Colorado, but millions more need our services. We stand on the shoulders of Marilyn Vanderbilt Atler, Larry Atler, and many more survivors and loved ones who've made that healing journey. But we need you to join us to give these services to every other survivor and loved one who needs them.
We know WINGS is just the start of something that needs to change locally and nationally. We need far more resources to address this.
Now it's our turn to build upon what Marilyn and Larry have started and to help all adult childhood sexual abuse survivors to heal.
It's time we stand together for all survivors.
I stood for my wife and family.
We stood
For each other.
I stood with my partner just to assure him that he would never have to feel alone in his journey.
I stood for myself and for all the survivors out there.
I stood for my friend and for all survivors in our community.
I stood for my spouse and my 2 sons.
I stood for my patients, and I stand for WINGS.
We stood for our daughter.
I believe you. You're not alone.
I am most proud that I am stronger than I ever believed I could be, and I can help others.
And I ask that you join us, that you stand with us and help us help others on their journey.
We need you to stand in front of us. We need you to stand beside us when we go through this process. We need you to stand behind us in support. We need you. We can't do this without you. We need you.